morning and welcome back to the lecture series. So, we are discussing science fiction. We were talking about Chaucer's The House of Fame, where we see in a work as early as The House of Fame, uh, a medieval, period work, uh, incorporating science fictional elements in the same way, just like Chaucer. um, Many other medieval, many other writers from the medieval period, we see medieval travel narratives frequently containing science fictional themes and elements. Works such as Mandeville's Travels include automata, alternate species and subspecies of humans, which include cyanoencephaly and giants, and also information about the sexual reproduction of diamonds. However, Jean Mandeville's travels and other travel narratives in its genre tend to mix real geographical knowledge with knowledge that are now understood as fictional. So it's difficult to distinguish in a way which parts of these travel narratives should be considered as science fictional and which are commonly believed notions that were prevalent and which are a commonly believed notion or notions that were prevalent in the Middle Ages. So the line between science fiction and commonly held notions in the medieval society is not very clearly drawn. The Age of Reason in the 17th and 18th centuries witnessed a widespread interest in scientific discovery. It fueled the creation of speculative fiction that anticipated many of the tropes of more recent science fiction. So, several works expanded on imaginary voyages to the moon, first in Johannes Kepler's Somnium or the Dream that came out in 1634, which both Carl Sagan and Isaac Asimov have referred to as the first work of science fiction. Other works that I have already mentioned in my earlier lecture, Godwin's The Man in the Moon in 1638 is anticipated as the first work of science fiction in English. Space travel also figures prominently in Voltaire's Micromegas that came out in 1752, which is notable for the suggestion that people of other worlds may be in some ways more advanced, more advanced, smarter than those of Earth. So, Margaret Cavendish's The Description of a New World called The Blazing World, which was published in 1666, is a novel that describes an alternate world found in the Arctic by a young noblewoman. Simon Tissot de Patot's Voyages et Aventures de Jacques Masse, which came out in 1710, features a lost world. Tissot de Patot's La Vie, Les Aventures et les Voyages de Roenland du Révérend Père Cordelier Pierre de Messange features a hollow earth. Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels contains descriptions of alien cultures and weird signs. Samuel Madden's Memoirs of the 20th Century that came out in 1733 is centered on a narrator from 1728 who is given a series of state documents from 1997 and 1998 by his guardian angel, and the work is based on a plot device that is reminiscent of later time travel novels. Ludwig Holberg's Niels Klim's Underground Travels came out in 1741. It's an early example of the hollow earth genre. Louis Sebastien Mercier's L'An 2440 came out in 1771, gives a predictive account of life in the 25th century. Nicolas Edme Restif de la Breton's La Découverte Australe par un homme volant, which came out in 1781, features prophetic inventions. Giacomo Casanova's Ice, Giacomo Casanova's Icosamiran, which came out in 1788, is a novel that makes use of the hollow earth device as well. And then we have some works that are better known that became more famous. One such work is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which was published in 1818. The novel features the archetypal mad scientist experimenting with advanced technology. Here, Shelley is trying to comment on what happens when science goes wrong, when technology goes wrong, when one's brainchild is trying to subsume or engulf one's own identity. The brainchild, the creation is trying to kind of dominate the creator. And if we look at this work from a feminist angle, it is also about the trial and error in reproducing, giving birth by a man, that leads to an entire, that leads to a fiasco. A man trying to give birth, it becomes a Frankenstein and engulfs the creator. So it could have its feminist point of view. It has been seen, in fact, it has been read in this way by several feminists. So Mary Shelley's short story Roger Dodsworth, The Reanimated Englishman, which came out in 1826, sees a man frozen in ice revived in the present day. The story incorporates the now common science fiction theme of cryonics, which is also an example of Shelley's use of science as a conceit to drive her stories. Another futuristic Shelley novel is The Last Man, which is also considered as a science fiction novel. Jean-Baptiste Cousin de Gronville's Le Dernier Homme, published in 1805, translated to English as The Last Man, is a French science fantasy novel in the form of a prose poem, which is considered as the first story of modern speculative fiction which depicts the end of the world. Historian Felix Bodas Le Roman de l'Avenir and Emily Silvestre's Le Monde tel qu'il sera, the former published in 1834 and the latter in 1846, are two novels that try to predict what the next century is going to look like. In Jane C. Loudon's The Mummy, or A Tale of the 22nd Century, published in 1827, ancient Egyptian pharaoh Cheops is revived by scientific means into a world that is suffering political crisis, where technology has advanced to gas flame jewelry, and houses are shown as migrating on the rails, and so on. Louis Joffre's Napoleon et la Conquête du Monde, published in 1836, describes an alternate history of a world conquered by Napoleon. C.I. de Fontenay's Star ou Psy de Cassiope, published in 1854, is an Olaf Stapledon-like chronicle about an ancient world and civilization. Further, astronomer Camille Flammarion's La Pluralité des Mondes Habités, published in 1862, speculates on extraterrestrial life. Edward Bulwer Lytton's The Coming Race, published in 1871, is a novel where the main character discovers a highly evolved subterranean civilization. Edward S. Ellis's The Steam Man of the Prairies, which was published in 1868, is the first science fiction dime novel which revolves around two characters, Ethan Hopkins and Mickey McSquizzle, one being a Yankee or an American, the other being an Irishman, who encounter a colossal steam-powered man in the American prairies. Johnny Brennard, a teenage boy, has constructed this steam man, and the boy uses the steam man to carry him in a carriage on various adventures. Rudyard Kipling's contributions to science fiction go beyond their direct impact at the start of the 20th century. He's producing works such as the Aerial Board of Control stories, and then he's writing The Army of a Dream, which critiques the British military. Um, Kipling here is greatly drawing on what he has witnessed in the South African War. And he is talking about the worst features of the old army. It is very much inspired by, influenced by what he has seen in the South African War. And these works by Kipling are very modern in style. They strongly influence authors like John W. Campbell and Robert Anson Heinlein, the latter of whom wrote a novel titled Starship Troopers, which contains all of the elements of the Army of a Dream. And here in, uh, in Heinlein's work, Stranger in a Strange Land can be compared to the Jungle Book, with the human child raised by Martians instead of wolves that raise Mowgli. So, another great science fiction writer after H.G. Wells was Olaf Stapledon. He lived between 1886 and 1950. His four major works are Last and First Men, came out in 1930, Odd John came out in 1935, Star Maker, that came out in 1937, and Sirius, which was published in 1944. All of these works, introduce a myriad of ideas that writers have since adopted. J.H. Rosny Ayn, born in Belgium, is the father of modern French science fiction. He is a writer who is also comparable to H.G. Wells, and he writes the classic Les Scipios. So he writes the classic Les Scipios, published in 1887, and La Mort de la Terre, which comes out in 1910. Further, Robert Hugh Benson wrote one of the first modern dystopias titled The Lord of the World, published in 1907. H.G. Wells understands evolution, any kind of scientific technological progress that is associated with development and evolution as devolution, in fact, and reduction of human dignity. And he saw the far future in terms of decadence. He is talking about two possibilities of life either being hedonistic and above the ground, or ugly, technological and below the ground. He speculates that the human race has evolved into two species: the leisured classes, the more opulent sections, have become the ineffectual Eloi, and the downtrodden working classes have become the brutal, light-fearing Morlocks, right? In fact, H.G. Wells extrapolates out of cultural into existential critique and sees decadence as the central logic, not only of art but also of the cosmos as a whole. The technoscientific speculation leads to a socio-political speculation, which suggests that one of the ways of understanding science fiction is in terms of critical investigation. In other words, the alignment of science fiction with specific trends in literary cultural theory, such as feminism. I already referred to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in 1818, which explores how men could give birth and what is the consequence of men giving birth. Further, Sultana's Dream in 1904 1985 by Begum Rokeya, which discusses or which envisions a gender reversed India in which it's the men who are kept in parda or in burqa. Uh, Ursula Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, published in 1969, which talks about a man from Earth who travels to the planet Githan, where the people have no fixed gender. He's lonely, he's sickened, appalled, and also fascinated. So, we see in science fiction, we see that what everyone or a collective, people, a society, a given community considers as normal, as normality, becomes a wilderness, a situation of loneliness that isolates one individual, right? Someone who cannot fit into that notion, that definition of normal. Now, Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, which was published in 1985, comments on policies of a totalitarian theocratic state which controls women's bodies and reproductive functions. The book is often read as a political prophecy. There are also so many instances of science fiction that becomes a commentary on the post-colonial conditions. Many of the conflicts and political dimensions of Star Trek, for example, are allegories of contemporary cultural realities. So, we would like to also mention the case of Paolo Bacigalupi's science fiction novel, The Wind-Up Girl, which was published in 2009. The Wind-Up Girl by Bacigalupi is a commentary on techno-orientalism and its effect on the discourse of race. So, the people of color in the novel struggles for their daily survival in a racist global political economy. In The Wind-Up Girl, a dystopian picture of worldwide contraction has led to an increased control of biotech companies over worldwide food production. So, the writer Bacigalupi critiques the imperialist practices and environmental consequences of multinational biotech companies. In the plot, we see American biotech company called Agrigen attempts to penetrate Thailand's market in order to integrate the country into the global economy, and this is subjecting Thailand, the local economy of Thailand, to to disadvantage. It is putting the local economy and the social structures to severe disadvantages. This is subjecting Thailand's local socioeconomic conditions to severe disadvantages, and so Agrigen's superior technology looms over the thriving market, thriving local market that Thailand earlier used to enjoy. So, we can see that science fiction comments on factors such as authoritarianism, imperialism, class warfare, economics, racism, religion, human rights, sexism, feminism, as well as the role of technology. We could quote Gene Roddenberry in this regard. So, Roddenberry states, and I quote, "By creating a new world with new rules, I could make statements about sex, religion, Vietnam politics, and intercontinental missiles." I would like to stop our lecture here today, and let's meet for another round of discussions in another lecture. Thank you.